but it makes no sense. I need space to find myself, a little time to get some rest. If I stay, I lose my breath. I'm going to find my space.
Hey YouTube, what is good? Well, this week you've just seen a little behind the scenes footage from the shoot we had with Jala and Chanel. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy, just a normal shoot. The goal was to create some glittery backdrop with glitter straws, like it's a curtain with glitter straws hanging down, and we wanted to play around with some depth and some headshots. So the focus was on colors and headshots. Now in the beginning we started with the deep octa, which was at a 45-degree angle to the model, and then later on we changed things up, so we went for a clean beauty shot, and then later on we added 2 more strobes in the back, so we got one on the left, one on the right, going through the curtain, which creates those nice purplish and bluish tints in the image. Now we fired the strobes, and at the end we also changed to ambient light, so we just used the modeling light as a light source to create some images with just ambient. So they didn't fire, they were just ambient there. So yeah, that's about it about that shoot. Now we will jump into the next segment where you will see one of our workshops we do. It's the formula is as follows. You book as a photographer, beginner, intermediate, advanced, a time slot. So that slot is just for you, the model and me. And during that time only you shoot, and you can tell me what you want in regards of light. So if you want something more creative, something more complex, you just tell me, I arrange it. Now you book a time slot, normally it's 1 hour, depending on how long you want to shoot or how big the concept is you want to create, which you have in your head, the longer you have to book, of course. So that's the formula for the one-on-one. In the segment you will see Utah jumping around all the time, so some of them wanted some jump shots because the theme for that event was dance. So yeah, enjoy that little segment and here we go!
We're moving through the night like we're from a different star, flying over streets and the broken hearts. But they can't even touch us, we found a different beat. Paradise is waiting and we bought the leads. Ooh, getting caught in the mist, there's so many that never get out of. They're feeding the fears and the doubts. Ooh, but we're golden, we run till the end and we run without shame. We own the game, and we ride on the flames till the morning light. Baby, cause we're dynamite. Ain't nobody gonna hold us down. Break all the rules, let them run and hide. Baby, cause we're dynamite. Gonna let the world know. We're dynamite, we're dynamite.
So you've just seen a little segment from our Christmas shoot. Nothing too crazy because, as we all know, I cannot record myself and shoot at the same time. So how did we come up with this idea? So I was scrolling some Pinterest, which is a really nice source to get some information. And while I was scrolling on Pinterest, I came up with an idea which had some more of a wedding vibe to it, but I decided to do some Christmas pimping to it. And so we decided to make two custom-made backdrops on canvases, which we've used. So we layered them on top of each other, so in the back we got that nice depth going on. And then it took us about from 2 in the afternoon up till 6 o'clock. It took us about 4 hours to just get the set right. Now, what was the main issue? The main issue was that when you just put on some lights on the background, it doesn't work. Like in photography in general, we all know we work with lines. So you don't want to create a crossing pattern in the background. You don't want anything there that draws too much attention. I especially ordered for this shoot a light cable with pretty big bulbs in it, which give a lot of light. And at the end, the cable was too thick, so it was too dominant in the scene to use it. So we decided to just cut it out. Now, we ended up with just some lines of light cables on the left and right side to create that curtainy feel to it, to create some depth in it, a scenery, let's say. And yeah, it took us about 4 hours to just get to that point. And then on the ground, you don't see it in the images, but there are little candles on there. So that's something to keep in mind if you're shooting with fire, to make sure that safety is everything. Like, mention it to the model, don't move like a crazy model, just stay in the same spot, which limits the movement. So she can only use hands and her body, but don't do crazy things, especially with a long dress which is covered in Christmas balls. Now, last year I did a Christmas shoot in a bathtub with Marieke with like 1,000 Christmas balls in it. And we've decided to reuse some of the balls to create that more of a Christmas vibey feel in the images. We started with just a normal black dress, which were the first pictures. And then we decided to change things up and come up with a white dress, which I had hanging, which is pretty long. And we throw some balls on top of it, combined with the little candles going on and the Christmas lights in the background, to create those images you've just seen. Now, how do you manage to get the strobes with the ambient light from the little light bulbs? Now, that's the tricky thing. Normally we learn people that when you use the strobes and you arrange the aperture, which controls the light from the strobe on the model, that defines how much light the model will have and how much light she will not have. Now, when you combine the strobes with ambient light, the key in all this is dragging the shutter. It's a technique which makes you shoot on a lower shutter speed, so you get more ambient light environment rays on your image. So when you make a longer shutter speed, you get in more light. So when a light bulb is putting out rays of light, the camera will catch it. Now, the tricky part is to find a mixture of both. So you don't want your strobe to be too high, because we all know when we put a strobe on Christmas lights or LED lights, when we strobe, it seems like the lights are out, so they are not burning. That's because the range of the strobe is too high, so it will just flash away all the ambient light coming out of the lights. So when you shoot, make sure that you shoot on a tripod, because when you're shooting, for instance, with a 70-200 lens, and you're starting to go lower than 1/60th, 1/25 of a shutter, it starts to get pretty tricky to get stable images. Now, when you're shooting on a tripod, it gets easier, but keep in mind, the slower you go with your shutter speed and the model moves something, and she's not staying steady, you will get those light trails following her hand or any part that is moving. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, with candles on the floor, a candle moves like this. So when you make an image and the shutter speed is too slow, you will get more like a trail of light instead of just a frozen fire bulb. Now, all those things together, we created the images you've seen. It's something special, not the normal shoot. And for lighting in this scene, we just used the deep octa with diffusion in front of it and in it. So 2 diffusion panels, and we feathered the light out a bit. I didn't want to go too bright on the images, because I wanted to have still that nice shadow part on the face to define everything. And then yeah, that's about it. Now, keep in mind, we shoot in the studio here on a big screen, and we can immediately adjust while we are shooting. So we can see if the image is in focus, if the model hasn't moved, if the lights are okay, if the combination of strobes and ambient are okay. So we can immediately adjust while shooting. It's harder when you're shooting on the back of your camera to determine all those things. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, I've changed recently to a Camfi, which is a wireless solution. So in the next vlog that will be talked about, because it works really nice, but not too much about that. So keep in mind when shooting those things to make sure that the model knows that when she's going into fire or surrounded by little fire bulbs, tea candles, that she has to be safe and she doesn't move too much. So yeah, that's about it. Now, what would I change when we do the workshop? Because next week we will be having a workshop. The thing I would change is just make the backdrop a little bit more broader, so we have more depth in it, so that the model can actually turn a little bit her body, so that we can play around with the long dress behind her. Now, it will take more Christmas balls to cover everything, but that shouldn't be an issue since I still got 1,000 from last year. So yeah, that's about it about the shoot. If you got questions about it, get in touch with me, and then don't forget to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and then I'll see you when I see you. Ciao, ciao.